Hello and welcome to Movie Film Studios, the only podcast that takes you inside the mind of two film studio executives as we unravel and then re-ravel the best that Hollywood has to offer. I'm Isaac.
And I'm AJ, and today in the Movie Film Studios Memorial Theatre, we sat down and watched the 1996 action-adventure comedy musical film Muppets Treasure Island. Muppet-tastic.
Yes, this one we've been holding out for a while. Been very keen to get in and watch a Muppets film.
Mm-hmm.
So we start this week with, as usual, our box office report.
Yes,
Last
indeed.
week we released a film called Cretaceon and the Seed of Life.
That's right.
How did that go, AJ?
Well, look, you know how we rushed into production our digital distribution platform, which was, of course, called...
Mufasa,
which stands for...
Movie Film Workshops.
Digital distribution.
There's this weird thing where there's two digitals next to one another. So Movie Film Workshop's digital distribution platform.
That's
so,
it.
And you have to remember that the P at the end is silent.
Yep.
So it's All right, okay.
So we rushed that into production, which we thought was a great idea. The problem is we didn't really work on the security for it, so we were hacked.
Right.
Yeah.
Was it the Pirate Bay? Was it Torrent?
It was Spielberg. Steven Spielberg.
Spielberg?
Yeah. He was colluding with the Russians. I mean, think of all the films he's made that aren't wholesome and American. There's many of them. And he went in. He himself, it wasn't even a thing where he hacked us over the internet. He broke into the studios.
Old sort of cat burglar style.
Yeah. He went downstairs to our mainframe basement.
Nothing is safe anymore. Nothing's sacred.
And he stole everything.
Everything.
He stole the film we already had on there, which was Tequila Gold. And he also stole the spec script for Cretaceon. He stole...
And all the concept art, I imagine.
All the concept art.
I mean,
it's mostly his own art from his own films,
exactly.
But he stole it all.
Yeah, we did sort of take it from Indiana Jones and Jurassic Park. Pretty much.
He took it all.
Yeah.
He basically thought, well, this has my name all over it, so therefore it's mine. He took the actual server as well. So the digital distribution platform needs to be rebuilt. It's being rebuilt right now. I don't know if you can hear all the hammering and the drilling and the jackhammering in the background. I don't know why the jackhammering to install the server, but it's just the way it is these days. I don't ask these questions. So the thing is, we've lost a lot. We've lost all the progress on that film.
So, I mean,
But we will rebuild. Life finds a way.
Life does find a way.
Which is from a film.
And
I can't remember the name
it belongs
right
in
now.
a museum.
It does, yep.
And
that's No Moon.
That is No Moon. I was actually trying to think of Spielberg films specifically.
Okay.
I was like, that's No Moon. Was that The Color Purple or was that Schindler's List? I can't really remember where that quote comes from.
So hopefully the digital distribution platform, the Beta 2.0, will be done by the time we finish this episode. The lawyers tell me that it's on track. I don't know why they're building it, but they're really the only people we have employed in this place.
Yeah.
So hopefully, by the time we create whatever film we create today, we can chuck it on there and hopefully mitigate the loss of Cretaceon.
Yeah, that is a big blow for the studio. We had so many plans for that.
Yeah, and Spielberg came in as well, and he wasn't really well disguised. He had one of those like Groucho glasses and
he was doing the
on.
Tequila Gold thing where he was just carrying his Oscar on his.
Yeah, so I thought he was here for that.
Yeah, exactly. Doing reshoots.
For reshoots for Tequila Gold.
Because we're doing alternate endings. Was that the one?
Oh, that's right. Yeah. There's an ending every week.
Infinite alternate endings, and this one I thought was the one where Spielberg was. It was a dream all along, and Spielberg was the director and he was holding his Oscars.
Yeah, it turns out ulterior motives. Never trust Spielberg.
Never trust Spielberg. All right, let's move on to This Week in Trailers.
Yes,
this week we've watched two trailers. The first one, obviously big news in the world of Hollywood and big budget films, is The Avengers Infinity Wars.
Yeah. The culmination of many threads.
Yeah.
Through films and TV series.
I don't remember when the first Iron Man came out. Would have been around 2007, I'd say.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, 06 maybe. Around about that time. Yeah, 07 sounds about right.
Somewhere around there. So it's a decade of this sort of storytelling of these characters, sort of culminating into what will definitely not be the end of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but potentially the end of these actors playing these characters.
Yeah, it's a big chapter that's about to close on this franchise. I'm predicting we're going to see some deaths of some substantial characters. Not that the actual character will die, but the alter ego of that character might die. Like, I feel like Tony Stark's not long for this world. And maybe Steve Rogers as well. Because in the comics, they're always replaced by some other person anyway, so...
There's always like a second Iron Man, or this is Spider-Man 2.0 because Peter Parker died, and who knows? And
then they recast the character or the actor and just pretend you don't notice that it was played by.
It's not Tobey Maguire / Andrew Garfield /
I was thinking of the Hulk as well.
New guy, Edward Norton was actually and that's Eric Banner /
and that
Mark
film's
Ruffalo.
still canon as well. So
well, there you go.
Anyway. I feel like because they haven't really introduced the concept of new actors playing existing characters, I feel like this is the film where they're going to do it. They'll make a big story impact moment where one of your favorite characters will die. And then it turns out it's just some CGI character that no one cares about.
Yeah, I mean, the trailer looks... Again, it's the first look trailer, and I think there's a few films that are still to be released before... this one. So Black Panther is due out at some point.
Yep.
We've just had Thor Ragnarok. And then obviously Infinity War. So it's and also Guardians of the Galaxy 2 was earlier this year as well. So there's still some threads that I think they're going to lay into those films because they're already well and truly on their way. But this just looks like Doctor Stephen Strange shows up, Guardians of the Galaxy crew, Spider-Man shows up, the Avengers. All of them are in there, and it's just sort of shots of like, here's another character that had their film, and there's a character there that had a film, and here's these two characters that kind of may have had a bit of a romantic relationship at the end of one of those films, and we're going to sort of show a shot of that. So there's nothing story-wise which is showing there. Again, we've been building up all of this time for Thanos putting his power gauntlet together with the Infinity Stones, so really the foundation of that story is already there.
I'm thinking about like the logistics of this film as well, because I cannot think of another film aside from Tequila Gold that has this big of an ensemble cast, right? So all the characters in this film have had their own films. And there's probably close to... I saw an image the other day showing who was confirmed to be in this film, and there was something like 35 characters in it.
Oh, wow.
Including, Nick Fury and Maria Hill and a lot of those, like...
Who's Maria Hill?
You know that one, Kobe Smulders from How I Met Your Mother?
Yeah.
I don't know what she does in the film.
She's a regular person without superpowers.
That's right, yeah.
Super good at logistics. Yeah. I think she was in one of the Captain Americas, and she helped out Winter Soldier. I think she played a rather large role there.
Few of them.
Yeah, I mean, she had background roles in the other Avengers films as like a computer operator, but in this one she actually was a character who did actions which actually influenced the plot somewhat. But I didn't know what her name was, so thanks. Is Danny Pudi reviving his role as also a computer operator? I think he had in one of the Captain Americas.
Sure, why not? I mean, we're going to be in this film at this point.
Yeah,
There's
sure.
so many people in it. This is annoying, actually, because it took away the actors for our own films for a long time.
I know. Yeah, like, we'll soon be able to get... instead of casting like the older and less popular Hemsworth brother, we might actually be able to get Chris or Liam. I don't even remember what his name is. Don't tell him that. He was in Westworld, and everyone's like, "Oh, some guy named Hemsworth's in it. He's older, but he kind of looks a bit like a Hemsworth." Bob Hemsworth. So
sells insurance on
exactly.
the side.
So Bob Hemsworth will be out, and we'll get Chris back in.
Great.
Yeah, and we get another Chris who plays his Captain America's Chris.
We'll get Robert Downey Jr. instead of Robert Downey Jr.
Robert Downey Sr. is so old right now, and it's costing us so much money to CGI his face into a younger Robert Downey Sr. who looks like Robert Downey Jr. And he refuses to grow the goatee as well, and we have to CG that back in.
Oh, man.
Thankfully, a lot easier than removing a mustache.
Yeah, hopefully we can get Robert Downey Jr. before he has to shave off that goatee as well, because I'm sure he's contractually obligated to hold it while he's involved in the Marvel films.
I saw an interview with Robert Downey Jr. a while ago, and he's like, "Oh yeah, Mrs. Downey's back in the hotel room." I'm like, "Don't you mean Mrs. Downey Jr.?" And I'm like, "Oh no, his last name's not Downey Jr. His last name is Downey, and he just happens to be a junior."
Yeah,
didn't really click before, but
it's
that's
like
fine.
It's like Dwayne the Rock Johnson. You cannot say it without adding the word junior on the end of it.
Exactly. Yeah,
it just doesn't work. Anyway. That's Avengers Infinity Wars. That'll be out, I don't know, whenever.
And it will make more money than you
So
can comprehend.
much money. But no Oscar gold.
No Oscars. They may get it for practical effects, so who knows?
Probably
No?
not.
Never?
No.
Original score?
No.
Best spandex?
Yes.
All right, what was the second trailer we
The
watched this
second
week?
trailer we watched was a claymation film called Early Man from the studio that brought you Wallace and Gromit and some pirate film that neither
Pirates,
of us like.
Shaun the
very much.
Sheep, Chicken Run,
Yeah.
Flushed Away.
Flushed away. Oh. Yeah. And it's set in the, well, almost in the same, could be set on Cretaceous, to be perfectly honest. But it follows a group of cave people, I guess, early descendants of human beings.
Early Man, you might say.
Oh, I might. But there's women in there.
There are, yeah.
And their kind of travails in the environment, hunting rabbits.
Surviving, really.
Surviving and so on. And then the Bronze Age comes screaming in through the guise of this more advanced civilization who's saying this is now the way forward. The Stone Age is dead. Long live the Bronze Age. Cue hilarity, fish out of water.
Exactly.
We need to get back to our roots kind of thing. It's it's kind of like, it's the Brexit film, isn't it?
I actually do think the Bronze Age character, even though voiced by an Englishman, has like a somewhat French accent.
Yeah.
And it is almost like this Stone Age England wants to sort of separate, or we just want to continue on our. I don't even know what that accent is. I should probably would continue on our ways.
Yep.
And we don't like these continental foreigners coming over here and telling us what to do. So
yeah, and ironically, the continental foreigners have amazing technology
and a better
money
structured society.
But no, they're fine to throw spears at rabbits. It's fine. It's a traditional British pastime, tossing spears at rabbits, watching them run. It looks fine.
It does. I mean,
fun.
in terms of a studio that has a very distinct animation style and has pioneered that and continued with that for a very long time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good to see that this sort of stuff is still out there. There's much easier ways of animating and making films.
Yeah.
But this has a lot of distinct sort of style and character that you don't really get elsewhere.
It's physical clay, like they're making them, it's a physical film. And it's interesting because they did do Flushed Away, which is a CGI film that they co-produced with DreamWorks. And it has none of the same feel to it at all. Yeah. So they used the same character style, but it was all CGI animated and it just looked a bit shit.
Having said that, I did watch Pirates! ! I think the exclamation mark is part of the title. It was not a very good film.
Okay.
With Hugh
Smiley face.
Hugh Smiley face Grant. So
Rotten Tomatoes disagrees with you there, but
who knows? I watched it in a really bad cinema with my sisters, and I don't think either of us I think we went to watch another film and there wasn't one at the right time, so we ended up watching that one instead. So maybe I just wasn't in the right headspace. But speaking of, let's see if I can segue this. Studios that have a very distinct animation / style, which they've continued to develop through lots of genres. This week's The Muppets. Let's talk about The Muppets.
The Muppets Treasure Island, to be precise. So 1997? 96. Comedy musical film based on the
Robert Louis
Stevenson novel of the same. Well,
he didn't call it Muppets
Treasure Island.
He wanted to, but his editor just said, well, how about we just call it Treasure Island? And
he begrudgingly agreed.
Yeah.
Now his ghost is like, damn it, I knew I was right. Neither of us had seen this. I remember when I was a kid reading about this film, reading about the Muppets and what the film was going to be about, but I never actually got a chance to see it at the cinemas when it came out. I don't know why. I'm not sure what I was doing in 96.
I think we looked up Cutthroat Island came out in 95 and I would have been 9 years old. I definitely saw Cutthroat Island, which is like a bloodthirsty actual pirate film, and yet the year later when the kids film came out, I didn't actually end up watching it.
Was Cutthroat Island I thought it was a kids film as well.
No, I'm fairly sure it's a action-y adventure. All I really know now about Cutthroat Island, it was a big flop. They sunk a lot of money into it and it did not earn it back.
Sure.
But it was a very much more action-y and so supposedly realistic than...
So there was a spot in the mid-90s where pirates were in.
Sure.
But they just didn't do it well enough to keep them in until maybe 5 or 10 years later when the Pirates of the Caribbean films
was that
came
2003? So
when the first one came out.
Yeah, so 8 years of no good pirate films that I can remember. And then we got 2003's Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah.
And then a short, I want to say 7 years later, we got Pirates, ! The terrible claymation film.
What goes around comes around.
Are we going to do a 2-minute recap of this film?
I think we should. We always do.
I wasn't terribly familiar with the Treasure Island story.
No, neither was I.
And so I have absolutely no idea how faithful they are to the source material.
Well, I'm thinking of the Muppets Christmas Carol, which I think is mostly faithful. Well, I mean, it takes like the big points of it, I guess,
exactly.
and kind of runs with it. So,
but this one in the middle of it has a great big sequence where they're captured by island natives.
Sure.
And I'm like, I don't know if that's part of the story or whether that's just one of those, treasure hunting cliches that they wanted to chuck in the middle of it to introduce these pig characters so Miss Piggy could have a role.
Yep.
Who knows if that's in the book or not?
Who knows? We'll go check.
You don't know if is it Smollett or whoever?
Sure.
Whoever Captain Kermit, we'll just call him Captain Kermit.
Captain Kermit, yep.
I don't know how big of a role his character plays in the book, or whether Long John Silver is like actually a cook who's mutinous. These are things that happened in the film, in this particular version of the film. I couldn't tell you one way or the other.
Yeah. Anyway,
so I'm going to do a 2-minute recap of this version of the film. You can let us know if the actual Treasure Island varies in any way from this, but we'll give it a crack.
We'll give it a crack. All right. You have 2 minutes on the clock, apparently, and your time starts now.
All right, so we open in a small English village where Jim Hawkins, I believe, is the small child character played by Kevin Bishop.
Yes.
Who I know from a lot of English comedies. So he's in like Peep Show and Detectorists and a whole bunch of really great shows that I love. FM with Chris O'Dowd is a really great show. You should check it out. It's been off the air for about 8 years. But when I saw this like miniature version of this English comedian that I know as an adult, I was just like, oh my God. Anyway, so they're in this small English town. It's like an inn or a tavern. We have Billy Connolly recounting a story maybe.
Yep.
As it transpires, he's stolen a treasure map. Some pirates come to take it off him and he gives it to Jim. And Jim runs away with the treasure map and goes, I'm going to have to try and get a ship and sail away and find where this treasure is. Goes to Fozzie Bear, who is a
shipbuilder.
The son of a shipbuilder. And a complete idiot and who believes there's a man in his finger who's telling him what to do. He assembles a crew of...
various reprobates.
Yes, exactly. And as it turns out, sort of Tim Curry, playing Long John Silver as the cook here, has got all of his pirate mates onto the ship, unbeknownst to Kermit the Frog, who plays the captain of the ship, and Sam the Eagle, who plays the first mate. There is a fantastic dynamic there between Sam the Eagle and Kermit, where Kermit will say something innocuous and Sam will go interpret it as...
Sam introduces, before we know who the captain is, Sam introduces the captain as like the most bloodthirsty, most violent-tempered captain you've ever met, and then there's amazing sequence where this horse-drawn carriage tears through the port town, and then this dramatic reveal where this burly kind of angry-looking man steps out of the carriage and then moves out of the way, and it's just Kermit. Yeah,
and then Kermit gets on board and goes, "Oh, how's everyone doing?" And then Sam the Eagle's like rubs his finger against the railing, and it's a bit dusty, and he's like, "Who was responsible for dusting the cabins? I knew he was going to be furious.
He's furious.
40 lashes for whoever did this." And Kermit's like, "No, I just fine. I didn't mean it like that." Anyway, it's very, very good, the dynamic there. They start sailing away on the ship. Tim Curry and his pirate friends sort of try and arrange a bit of a mutiny because they hear a rumor that the treasure map is on board. They want to steal it. They somewhat do, and there's this sort of tension there where they've captured and torturing Gonzo in a very humorous torture sequence. They eventually get onto the island, having kidnapped Jim. So Kermit's plan is to set the pirates off onto the island and then sort of sail away and go, "We'll come back in a year and they'll be less likely to want to fight us." But as a counter to that, Tim Curry steals the young boy Jim, and they are forced to go and try and rescue them. They get to the island, and some of them are captured by island native pigs. Some of them go off and try and find the buried treasure, which isn't there anymore. In the hole, they escape from the natives. The pirates fight one another. They capture Miss Piggy and Kermit and dangle them off a cliff.
It should be mentioned that the natives are led by Miss Piggy, who was marooned on that island in an earlier escapade.
Yes, and who had been jilted at the altar by Kermit in a much earlier escapade. There's a bit of a fight there between the pirates and the crew.
Yep.
Swashbuckling, sword fighty sort of bits and pieces. It transpires that Miss Piggy had taken the treasure and hid it in a different cave or something, and they all go grab it. Then they, after the swashbuckling fight, the good crew arrest all the pirates and take them on the ship. And then Tim Curry escapes from the ship on a boat, and there's this most brilliant, heartfelt moment at the end of this film where Jim, played by this very young Kevin Bishop, and Tim Curry have this powerful moment of sort of like, I couldn't shoot you, I trust you, and you've broken my heart by betraying us. And there's this, it's like really, really well acted as well by this young boy and Tim Curry. Yeah. And then the Muppets sort of show up and add their levity to it. And then Tim Curry's boat sinks and he has to swim back to the island, and the treasure sinks to the bottom, and they all sort of sail off into the sunset.
And that moment works because all the way throughout the film, they've built a bit of a relationship between John Silver and Jim Hawkins.
Yeah. So, I mean, despite Long John Silver being a cutthroat pirate as far as we're aware, he does sort of take this young boy under his wing, and they sort of actually have a relationship.
Yeah, they have a bit of a relationship. Yeah, because it's I think Jim Hawkins at one point says his parents are dead and he's an orphan or something, as most classic literary characters are. And they bond.
Yeah, well, Tim Curry's like, my parents also died when I was young. And my dad was also the first mate on a ship. And then Tim Curry tells him about Polaris and how to find directions. It's all
There's some decent character development there. And I think it's part of the thing that makes this film I enjoyed it. I very much enjoyed this film, and I am a big fan of the Muppets. But it's nice to get those little moments of character depth. Right?
Yeah, and again, I don't know if it comes from the source material, if they're sort of directly dragging that build up of a character relationship between Long John and Jim. You would imagine that the book has to be a classic for a reason.
Yeah.
And these story moments are interjected in there, and you're like, well, I don't know if that's their Jim Henson and his crew doing that. I don't know if that's the original story. I don't know if the writers of the script have sort of put in there, but it feels organic and it feels really nice.
I feel like the book, from what I recall, deals with how infamous Long John Silver is, and it's kind of told from the perspective of someone who witnessed all of it, or who had been passed down these stories of Long John Silver and his quest for the treasure on that island.
I really thought it was told from the perspective of Jim. I thought that's what the story came from. But again, who knows? And it doesn't really matter what the source material is.
No.
Just that they've adapted it in a way which feels like these characters are. It doesn't matter if Captain Kermit is like as big a character in the book as he is. Basically, even exists in the book. Who knows? Yeah. The dynamic between all of the characters and the way they play out is really good. The comedy is a bit of a strange one for me because for the first maybe 15 minutes of the film, I really wasn't sure what they were doing.
Yep.
You had Billy Connolly sort of recounting this story. You had Jennifer Saunders as this like scullery maid wench who owns the tavern. There was this weird breaking of the fourth wall by Gonzo and his mate Rizzo.
Yep.
And it felt like really, really sort of clunky. I'm like, I get that it's the Muppets, but are they expecting me to laugh at bits that I'm not finding quite so funny? And then they get to the bit you described, the scene with Kermit rolling up as like this bloodthirsty captain. It just turns out to be Kermit. Yeah. And again, having not seen the film before, we're all sort of sitting there going, Kermit's going to have to show up at some point.
Yeah.
Is he going to be the captain?
Yeah.
Is Miss Piggy going to be the captain?
Yeah.
Is Swedish Chef going to be the captain? Who are the other Muppets who haven't shown up yet? That sequence is fantastic. They then get onto the ship and they do a roll call where they start calling out characters' names. It's hilarious, and like each joke lands like even harder than the one before. It's like old Bob, even older Bob, dead Bob. It's just like it is just each line is just hilariously well landed, and then
brilliant.
That's where it really got me on board. Again, it was probably 20 minutes in, but like it hooked me there, and it kept me for the rest of the film. So
the best roll, I have to go back to that roll call moment because my favorite one was right at the end where they were like. So Sam the Eagle's reading out the roll call and he calls out for like some kind of evil monster, baby
scabby
eater.
face, baby bug rolled over your face, bad breath,
and
ugly.
And then this buxom young woman comes out and then just says, "Here," in the most gravelly voice you've ever heard. And then they immediately call for like Angel Face, and then this grotesque, disgusting puppet monster comes out and says, "Here."
Yeah.
This is the thing that The Muppet sense of humor has always been like this, though. So it sort of toes the line of being somewhat risque, but also very endearing as well.
Yeah.
And it's something that really puppets can get away with, right? They can skirt that edge really, really well, and no one really can be offended by it, right? Like, we want to, as an audience member, you kind of give them more life than they actually have. But you never, to me anyway, you're never really offended by that's something that a puppet says, even though you know that there's a human behind it and someone has written this.
Yeah.
They feel like real life characters. And for me personally, because I, in my side life, outside of my life as a studio executive, I actually do puppeteer. And it's something that when you watch audiences who are watching you, they don't pay attention to you as a puppeteer. They pay attention to the puppet. And they're so captivated by this thing, this collection of felt and stuffing that is moving and talking, that they don't care about you. And if the puppet does something that is, would be out of place for a human to do, they'll love it. And it's a really weird thing.
It is a very strange thing. And obviously what the Henson Company started back in the 50s, and then I think late 70s they got the TV show.
Yeah.
It really just seemed to be something that captured the public imagination in a way that is unexpected, because you're like, what? There's this silly little felt puppets that are sort of going around saying stupid things, and for some reason everyone got on board with it and everyone loves it, and it's just become that part of our culture in a way where even growing up, Sesame Street is all just Muppet characters.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, again, Kermit is just a character and a face and a voice that I've known since
forever,
since I was learning to count, essentially.
And the weird thing with Sesame Street as well is initially when they brought the Muppets onto that show, they had their own segment. And then they found through testing that kids were not paying attention when the Muppets weren't on screen. So they brought them onto the street. Like, that's how that all came about. And that's where Big Bird came in, and Oscar the Grouch and all the other characters that inhabited that street. Because, they just capture your attention completely and utterly. There's a couple of human characters in this film, minus Tim Curry and Kevin Bishop. There's a couple of, pirates in there.
Yeah.
I have no idea who they are. I don't know what their names are, and I don't care, because all around them is this massive cast of amazing-looking puppets, who are full of color and full of life and
character more than anything. Each one, although they look different, and that you could just go, visually distinct, that's fine, but they all have their own character as well. Yeah. There's a couple of auxiliary pirate characters, like Polly the shrimp. There's a goat one as well, and it's sort of like these could just be like their own, wouldn't even need to care about giving them personality, but they go to all the effort of making them all distinct and individual, both looking and the way that they behave and the way that they speak. It's really, really well done.
There's a great blind pirate that appears at the start of the film. Not humanoid in appearance, it's kind of monster-esque, but it's got a sort of slight French accent to it. For some reason, and it has two eye patches, one over each eye, and it kind of stumbles its way through the scene, touching things and falling over and trying to be intimidating, but clearly not, and goes up to Kevin Bishop's character and it starts saying oh, pretty girl. It's just fun, right? Again, you couldn't do that as a human. It would not be anywhere near as entertaining, I don't think.
No, I think you've touched on something that's really worth knowing there, is it looks like a fun film, not only to make, not only to sort of watch, but it seems like everyone involved in that is having fun. Yeah. Tim Curry has just the most expressive face, and when he cocks his head back to laugh, and you can see sort of the roof of his mouth behind those sort of ridiculous teeth. Yeah. He I don't even know if you could say he's a somewhat serious actor, but he can act, and he's been in some very iconic films, and you see him here playing up against a bunch of puppets, but he's not this is weird, I'm playing with a bunch of puppets. This is more this is fun. I get to play in and amongst a bunch of puppets. Yeah.
And speaking of the fun as well, just the effort gone into making all these sets. So most of the film is set on a pirate ship.
Yes.
Which, obviously, they didn't actually shoot it on a real ship because it's just not practical. But they built an amazing-looking, full-size.
It would have had to have been full-size
to
because there are human characters going up and down stairs and in and out of doors, and then you have the full ensemble Muppets cast sort of having, and so you go, well, the Muppets not a very big thing, but then you got to realize there's a puppeteer behind every one of those sometimes 2 puppeteers,
Yeah.
and so everything has to be sort of full scale.
Not only that, but animatronics as well. There's various points where you've got puppets suspended from great heights, and there's no way a puppeteer would actually be up there controlling them, and it looks like they've actually got animatronic motion in there as well. It's an attention to detail and a creativity that I miss, right? Like, so Disney revived the Muppets for a while. They did that really kind of poor taste series on ABC as well, which was more of a sort of 30 Rock style behind the scenes look at the Muppets, and then the most recent movies as well. But they were very grounded in what they were trying to do with it. So they haven't done a big grand scale, let's take the Muppets and put them into some crazy situation for a while. And I really want to see that again.
Do you really? I mean, if you're saying that you really want to see it, does that mean we've unraveled this to a point where we've analysed exactly what the public is crying out for?
I think so, because I think we are the best representatives of the public and what they want.
Exactly.
It is our jobs.
So before we take this idea any further,
Yes.
I think it's prudent
Yes.
that we take it to the green room.
Great idea. And how do we get to that green room?
Through an audio sting.
That's right. And we're here.
Oh, it's so much more convenient than anything else. The teleportation powers of an audio sting.
I mean, the green room is on the 50th floor, as we've established, and that's a long elevator ride.
It is a long elevator ride. It's so much better when it's instantaneous teleportation. Yep. So we mentioned in an episode a very, very long time ago in passing that we have our own intellectual property called the Puppums.
Yes. Invented by Tim Benson.
Yeah, I mean...
who died.
You may think it's lazy, and we've just done what the Muppets did and took the word puppet and replaced one of the letters with an M. You're completely wrong. We arrived at that name a completely different way.
Yes.
So the Puppums have existed, and I really like what the Muppets did, where they mine intellectual property from like more than 100 years ago, and it's passed out of creative.
It's in public domain
exactly.
now.
Exactly. It's copyrights lapsed.
Yep.
We have public domain. So really anything that's more than 100 years old, we can just take it and do... Because they did it... The Muppets did it with A Christmas Carol.
Yes.
They did it with, obviously, Treasure Island. And I think there was a TV special, Wizard of Oz.
Yep.
So, I mean... And they're not paying licensing at all for any of that.
Cheap. So we should do the same thing?
I think absolutely.
What are we going to adapt?
We can go back... I mean, you could take anything.
Do we want to go... I mean, do we want it to be... I mean, those stories are much more family-friendly, I guess, right? So Wizard of Oz, Treasure Island. They're books or stories that were written for youth, young people, kids, or whatever.
Yeah.
Do we go the opposite direction? Do we go to, like, the Mark Twains and...
I don't know. I don't think A Christmas Carol's necessarily a kid's story.
But it has a heartwarming kind of ending, doesn't it?
I reckon we go back as far as we possibly can.
Oh, really?
Like the earliest story that I can think of which would be good is like Homer's The Odyssey.
Yeah, okay. Yep.
I think the Puppums do The Odyssey.
Yeah.
Are there any like Gilgamesh? I don't know Gilgamesh that well as one of the first great big epics. I think, maybe if because we can do that. We can go back to the earliest story told.
Yep.
And if it works, just keep going forward in history.
Surely the earliest story told was Man Throws Spear at Buffalo.
I mean, but it's not written down. Like, it's not intellectual property. Otherwise, like, if that's true, we're doing cave paintings. Is that where you go? Like, yeah, sure. Maybe that's what the picture books of the Puppums picture books can be. But when it becomes actually sort of storytelling, you start going with the Greek classics, and then you move through. I don't even know if there's Roman plays, or we can go through Shakespeare, and then go through. Gothic horrors. And
I do like Homer's Odyssey. Now,
it is a really, really great story.
I really hope you know the story of Homer's Odyssey better than I do, because it's sitting on my bedside table waiting to be read.
I know it quite well.
Okay, that's good. I'm going to pull my information from the Oh Brother, Where Art Thou film, which was just a retelling of Homer's Odyssey.
See, that was the other option. We could do a retelling of a retelling.
Oh, really?
And you know how Emma is clueless, so we do Puppums is Emma is clueless. So we can do that. We can do a retelling of Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, which is a retelling of the of the Odyssey.
Of the Odyssey,
but we also have to recontextualize it, so it's not so obvious that we can't do it in that sort of like
because they set in the 50s, I think. That the Oh Brother, Where Art Thou was set in the 50s, Americana.
Earlier than that, but
40s
again, I
maybe?
couldn't. Yeah,
actually, you're right, because the Ku Klux Klan are in that film.
Yeah, so 30s,
so maybe
sort
30s,
of like
Americana kind of country bumpkin kind of thing going there. So where do we set ours? Do we go back to the future?
No, we do it the other way around.
Oh, okay.
So where they've taken a Greek Odyssey
Yep.
and recontextualized it into the 30s, we
Yep.
take that film and recontextualize it back into the
Okay.
Greek.
Okay.
So it really just becomes the Odyssey again.
It's just the Odyssey again.
But for real eagle-eye viewers, when they see John Goodman show up with an eye patch, they realize that
and that's the thing. It's going to look really good on a poster when we say based on Homer's Odyssey, based on Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Yeah.
Because, that's some pedigree there. And we're taking not only one amazing literary classic, but two.
Yeah, exactly. Because, I mean, when you take that piece of classic literature, you've really only got the story to go from.
Yes.
When you also then add in the film, you've got camera shots, you've got soundtrack, you've got sort of style and aesthetic and actors and stuff like that to also sort of base that on. So, I mean, A Brother Where Art Thou had that fantastic soundtrack with the Soggy Bottom Boys doing their so we can throw in some sort of that.
So do we need to just hire that cast back? Do we need to get George Clooney back in and... actually, we can't get some of them are actually dead.
I think I don't think, I mean, unless they're really good puppeteers, I think we leave it where we are and we go with our own cast of expert puppet finger mouth moving dudes, which is what they're
puppeteers.
The puppeteers.
Yeah. It totally rolls off the tongue.
I think before we actually get into how the story goes through, it is worth going through our puppums themselves. Because we obviously have an ensemble cast of characters that have existed in there
for a long time.
For a very, very long time. And so we can actually sort of discuss those characters and who they are and their personality traits, and then we can assign them the roles. Obviously, the Odyssey is primarily a story of Odysseus and his journey home with the crew of the ships that he's sort of like trying to navigate through. Basically, he's pissed off Poseidon, and Poseidon said, well, you've just fought in this great big war, which was... I think what we're going to do is have to do... like George Lucas did when he released Star Wars and said it was episode 4. We do that with the Puppums Odyssey, because Odyssey is obviously part 2 of the Iliad.
Yes.
But we don't start with the Iliad. First we start with the Odyssey. Then if we want to do a prequel earlier on, we can do the Iliad.
And then we'll replace all the Puppums with CGI, right?
Yeah. So Odysseus actually annoyed Poseidon. Poseidon said, well, your journey home is going to be very arduous rather than very straightforward, and he ends up going from island to island and meeting a bunch of creatures and monsters and witches along the way that have various trials and tribulations.
Yep, perfect.
Which is great for our story.
Great for our story.
But, I mean, who is then... which of our puppums is going to play Odysseus?
Odysseus, yeah.
And which of the puppums are going to be the various crew, and which of them are going to be the various monsters along the way? Yeah.
Well, we've got a very wide menagerie of critters in our puppums lineup.
You say menagerie, and it's a really good word, because pretty much they are just, zoo creatures?
Zoo creatures, yeah. So we've got Zebi, the zebra.
Yeah. Sure. Not the most original name, but I mean, we did this thing where each of our characters had to start with a different letter, just so it became less sort of confusing.
Yeah.
And when we had 25 characters, all through like A to Y, and it came up to we were like, is it a coincidence that our last characters is a zebra, and the name also has to start with Z? So we were like, oh, Zebi, it has to be Zebi. We couldn't have really done it any other way. My personal favorite is the elephant. Ophelia, who is like the puppet itself is life size, and not life size for a human, life size for an actual elephant, and she's very timid, which is a bit strange, but also has that sort of very Dr. Jekyll and Hyde personality where at the click of a switch, she can go from being very timid to be very, very powerful. Does
her alter ego have a name as well?
Yeah, it's Ophelia. Like, it's like a Mrs. Ophelia and Dr. Ophelia. That's how you you can tell the difference between them.
So which one's which?
That's the mystery. That's the crux of the character.
Okay.
It's the Gonzo thing where we don't ever tell you what species he is until like 1999 Muppets in Space.
Yeah.
That's the Ophelia mystery, which we're not going to tell anyone until 40 years after we've been doing this.
Yep. We have that cassowary character I quite like as well. Very, very flamboyant, tons of feathers, very violent as well. And his name is of course Kelvin.
Kelvin
the cassowary.
Yeah. Very, very dangerous bird in real life, Cass. I mean,
incredibly. And for
the
some
closest
reason,
thing to a velociraptor that you can sort of have.
Yeah, and for some reason, the Puppums character has taken on that as the character trope and the character trait, and just is insanely violent.
Tries to disembowel people with their claw
absolutely.
toes.
We've lost so many Puppums to that puppet. Just through no fault of our own.
You will notice if you see them, there's just like lots of like stitching along the stomach line and hastily stuffed back in stuffing.
Yep.
Because Kelvin the cassowary, was it Kelvin?
It's Kelvin, yeah.
Just like at a whim, just disembowels them. And I don't really know why we decided to make the puppet claws out of actual razor blades. In retrospect, it's probably not the best idea.
No, but I mean, we can't question the creative process. It is what it is. We have to fit it with one of those mouth guards every time we move it around the set as well, because there's no telling what that mouth will do and what those claws will do. It's been tough. I mean, that's why we were taken off the air in the 70s. Our TV show was
because
cancelled.
of all the violent characters, and like Magellan the Black Panther.
Yep.
Just like also just horribly ferocious. just like so like the Panther character.
Yep.
You'd think nice sort of cat. No,
sure.
Just like. Will glass you in a bar fight, like kind of character, and people are just like, this is not acceptable for a kids' TV program to have these puppets who are actually sort of openly antagonistic towards one another. It's just getting out of hand.
So Kelvin the cassowary actually uses claws and stuff, whereas Magellan the panther actually will glass you.
Yeah, he could use his claws if he wanted to,
but doesn't.
But no, doesn't.
No, just gets an empty beer bottle, smashes it, and then starts stabbing.
To be fair, doesn't actually stab.
Oh, okay.
I have to massively clear distinction. Just threatens it. And like he has a personality disorder, not an actual sort of violent thug.
Yep.
But just when backed into a corner, resorts to threatening people with violence.
Yep. Now, we also have two Puppums who have an on-again, off-again relationship with each other as well. It's a howler monkey. And what's his name again? It's
Sebastian the howler monkey.
That's right.
Like, I can't remember how you forgot that.
I don't know. And his partner, or on-again, off-again partner, which is a meerkat, and her name is Lucy.
Yeah, Lucy and Sebastian. It's the the question that all of the Puppums fans have been wanting to know, because sometimes we'll end a production with this sort of like, and they lived happily ever after, and we start up the next one, and Lucy and Sebastian aren't together anymore, and everyone's just like, what's going on here? Magellan's in jail for violent conduct. Kelvin's sort of like undergoing laboratory experiments, like someone's captured him, and but behind all these sort of problems, everyone's just like, what's going on with Lucy and Sebastian?
Yeah, it's the love story for the ages, right? Two totally different species, but somehow they've come together and separated as well.
And so, I mean, the crux of the Odyssey is Odysseus wants to get home to his wife.
Oh, okay, yep.
So in this one, Sebastian, the howler monkey, will cast as Odysseus.
Yes.
And then you have Lucy, sort of that full-on, I will wait for you for 20 years as you try and make your way home to me kind of love story.
Mm-hmm.
And I think,
and they write letters to themselves, I assume, over the course of this film. Maybe they write home to each other.
Yeah, and they put it in a time-traveling mailbox.
Why not?
Sure. It worked in the lake house. It can work for us. Yeah, sure. And so, the various of the characters of the crew. I think Ophelia the elephant can play, there's a Cyclops at one stage.
Yep.
So we can just sort of like, do like a slight adjustment to the puppet where, because she's already giant compared to everyone else, just absolutely massive.
Yep.
And then you have, really the ensemble cast can play anyone. Magellan can play, one of the siren song that lures...
The harpies,
There's harpies. I think harpies may be Jason and the Argonauts with... But that's fine.
Similar concept.
Yeah, surely. Sure. I mean, and then you have Chyprides, I think, is like a giant whirlpool with teeth.
Sure.
Which is great because we actually already have a Puppum that is a giant whirlpool with teeth. So,
what zoo animal is that?
The giant. You've never been to the giant whirlpool with teeth exhibition at the Taronga Zoo in Sydney?
Not recently.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So let's run through what would happen in this story. Now, I know we are just adapting the Odyssey.
And Oh Brother We're Out There,
And
because
Oh Brother, We're Out
there's
There.
a bluegrass country roots soundtrack through the whole thing.
So
and not to steal too much from the Muppets, but our lead character is a left-handed banjophonist who sings about weather phenomenon, colourful weather phenomenon.
Great. And how hard it is to be a particular colour, in this case orange.
Is it how Howler is orange?
They sure.
I mean,
maybe.
even if they're not, then ours is anyway.
Ours is, yeah.
Sebastian, the orange Howler.
So has Sebastian escaped from jail? Because that's...
Sebastian wasn't in jail. It was Magellan who was in jail. Keep up.
Sorry.
And this wasn't in this iteration.
I meant in this film.
In this film, there isn't. All right, hang on. You're confusing me because you're definitely going, "Oh, brother, we're out there." I am
definitely.
And I'm just going, they're on a boat. So they're in jail. They're on a chain gang.
Yeah.
After winning the Trojan War. And they have to escape from jail and sail a ship across the ocean.
That's it. There we go.
It's not an adaptation of one or the other.
No,
it's a simultaneous adaptation of both.
At once. So, and it is obviously set during the time of Greek tragedies and Greek mythology, right? But they do play the banjo.
Country, bluegrass, banjo.
Blues grand. Great, yeah, great. That'll work. So Sebastian is setting sail. He has his crew.
Yeah.
Who's on his crew? Aside from who we've already mentioned.
All the other... we said there's 26 of them because there's A to Z.
Yep.
And actually sometimes there's punctuation and the numbers 1 to 0 come into it as well, but they can play the monsters or whatever.
Is it a pure Puppums cast or are we going to have some humans on there too?
Oh, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
I think what Muppets Treasure Island did really, really well was adding in those human characters.
Yeah.
So absolutely. Yeah. I think even...
So he needs maybe a brother. Right? Like, Oh Brother had the 3 main characters. There was George Clooney, then the other 2.
John Turturro, and the other guy whose name I've forgotten. Yeah, sure. And they were kind of they were friends, or were they actual
in
brothers
cahoots with each other? I don't think they were brothers.
I think they must have been. I know Odysseus didn't have a brother, but why would they put brother in the title if they weren't brothers?
Metaphorical brothers?
No, definite biological brothers.
Fine, okay.
Even if it wasn't, and we've misinterpreted it, ours are biological brothers.
Yep.
And yet somehow different species.
Yes.
Because 3 howler monkeys might just get a bit raucous.
Yeah.
So.
Oh no! It's only Sebastian is a howler monkey, and he has 2 brothers. One of them is a human.
Okay. Yeah.
And the other is a hippo.
A hippo. Yeah.
Yeah. Marjorie the hippo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can't have Marjorie the hippo because we have Magellan the
you're
Black
right.
Panther. We definitely said that's unless it's Marjorie, but we put a silent P at the front of it.
Yes.
Or a silent T.
Yeah.
I think at the moment in the English language, Temesis might be the only word that begins with TM.
Yep.
And now we're just going to add another one, and it's Marjorie, but with like a T at the start.
Okay. Great. So Sebastian has 2 brothers. Marjorie, sorry. Marjorie, you don't pronounce the T.
Don't pronounce the T.
Marjorie the hippo and a human.
Yeah, so we've got to cast the human. And it's got to be age appropriate. So it's sort of that sort of maybe young 20s warrior kind of.
Yep.
I don't know.
What about Tom Holland from Spider-Man? Is he too wisecracking?
Yeah, possibly a bit irreverent. Yeah. I think we're looking for something a bit more battle scarred, sort of your Jake Gyllenhaal sort of type characters.
Well, he's a bit older though.
He is a bit older, but like I think we
maybe
get him...
one of the Hemsworths.
Oh, the younger brother. Yeah. So we have Bob Hemsworth, and then Chris Hemsworth, and then Liam Hemsworth, and then they have a younger brother too.
Oh, do they?
Yeah.
What's his name?
Seratius. Seratius Hemsworth.
So sorry, hang on. The Hemsworth family went from Bob to Chris to Liam to
Seratius. Seratius Hemsworth.
Okay, cool.
So we get him in, and he can. We do it like as and introducing in the title credits.
Yeah, of course.
So
I want everyone to have and introducing.
Yeah, sure, because we can.
Yeah.
And introducing.
Marjorie the hippo.
Yeah, well, introducing Bob Hoskins as the left hand of Marjorie the hippo, because I mean, we have multiple puppeteers or puppeteers playing each animal. Yep. So it's not really fair that whoever does the voice gets a billing, because the voice might be done by a third person entirely.
Yeah,
and someone operating the mechanical blinking. So in the credits, it's going to be like Lucy, who was playing Odysseus, or a wife, and it's just gonna be a list of like 6 people who have played that character.
Great.
Because it's a bit weird. Like obviously in Star Wars, you have Darth Vader, who's
played by two actors rather.
David Prowse, I think,
David Prowse is the physical
bodybuilder.
actor,
James Earl Jones is the voice. Then you even have the guy who plays him without his helmet on. And then there's a fourth guy who plays Vader in some of the lightsaber fencing scenes.
Sure.
So like it's not fair to just say, James Earl Jones is Vader.
Yeah.
He's one aspect of Vader.
Yes.
So I think everyone who's involved, and again, it came from our creative minds. So really, part of Odysseus, played by Sebastian the Howler Monkey, puppeteered by 3 people and voiced by 1 person and created by other people. Everyone should have their name there.
Okay.
I think our credit sequence might go on for about 1.5 hours.
So your name and my name should appear with every single puppet.
Every single puppet.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine. So not like puppums created by Isaac Williams and AJ Scarcella. It's individual puppums created by us. Okay, that works. So we have a crew. We have a relationship. Sebastian has 2 brothers, and they're setting sail home after escaping from jail after the Trojan War. Is that correct?
Yes, they were on the chain gang after the Trojan War. Yeah.
Okay, so what do they hit first? What happens?
Look, it doesn't really matter, to be honest. We've got so much to choose from. So many events of Cersei the Witch and the Clashing Rocks and the Cyclopses and the John Goodmans and the recording studios and the Baptists in the water. Like, there's so many that we can pull from. There's very rich tapestry, and it really doesn't matter what we do. They can just go to an island or a place and do a thing, and then just move on to the next bit until the end. And that's all we really need to do.
Okay, great. All right, I like that. I kind of want John Goodman to feature on every island, though. Playing every single complication that comes up. So I know we had the whirlpool animal with teeth, but I somehow still want it to be played.
So you're suggesting that even though one of our zoo creatures is a whirlpool with teeth, instead of casting them as the whirlpool with teeth from the Odyssey, which I believe, I don't really know how to pronounce, it's like Charberdes or something like that. Instead, it's played by John Goodman, who's just like all we really do to shoot those scenes is sort of like put him in a bathtub and just have his mouth sort of slightly above the water, and then he'll sink it down and the water will slosh into his mouth.
I was even thinking, I want to go a bit more grand than that, and I want to put him on a revolving platform in that bath so that we can spin him around and actually have him spin, right? But we won't do anything else to him, so it'll just be his head. No makeup, just him in a bathing suit, I guess. Yeah,
movie film practical will get a bit annoyed if we don't at least do some sort of prosthetics. Well, that's the
thing, this film is all practical, so I don't know what they're complaining. I mean, if anything, the digital department's getting a bit antsy now.
That's true.
Because there's no digital effects in this film.
We might have to throw in some green screen. Muppets Treasure Island did it where they built this giant ship, but it was quite clearly on a green screen soundstage.
That's true, yeah. So we're going to have to do that
We'll have to throw him a bone.
Because, I mean, John Goodman's not going to want to go out on a boat. So we're going to have to build everything around him, the whole set.
You know what we haven't really done with our films so far is use them as an excuse to go on a holiday.
Oh, yeah.
There's no reason that we can't use this film to finance our own sort of Greek island getaway. It just seems like a really great idea.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
I mean, look, Movie Film Workshop's digital have their hands full getting Mafusa back up and running. So, I don't think they're going to mind if we don't have any digital shots.
Yeah, that's fine.
Practical, Movie Film Workshop's practical. Yeah. To make sure your passports are up to date. And, the Greek economy's in the toilet.
Yeah, I know. The Greek islands are super cheap.
Everything's going to be super, super cheap.
And once that Mephisto bit of money starts rolling in as well, $15 a month for a subscription to that. Exactly. Multiply that by, a couple of people, and you're going to have enough to buy an island in no time.
Exactly.
Great. All right. Which island are we going to get?
Just
the main one.
Naxos. Sure. I know that's a Greek island from my year 12 ancient history studies.
All right, great. So the whole production's going to be there.
You could say any sort of Thassos. Is that a Greek island? Probably.
Yep.
Just add os to any symbol. Deskos. Yeah, probably.
Bikos. Yeah.
Done.
Great. Okay, cool. So we are... production's going to move to a Greek island so that we can set up... It's going to be a tax haven too, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's good.
In fact, what we're going to have to do is actually bury our movie funds. We'll convert them into gold and put them in a chest and bury them on one of the islands.
That's where we can put our Oscars as well once
we win them.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so, like, if we do have to do a Puppum's Treasure Island later on, it's all just set up. There's actually already gold buried on an island that we own, and we have our own maps to get to it.
And we won't tell the cast what's going on either for when we make Treasure Island, so their reactions to it will be, like, genuine when they actually find gold and stuff on those islands. So we'll set up an Amazing Race-style situation and give them all maps, and then we'll secretly film them. But the condition is the puppeteers or the puppeteers need to actually do the race as puppets.
That is one of the best ideas that you've come up with, just as a reality TV show.
Yeah.
Again, Mephisto Wittida is always looking for, like, original TV content, because we can dump all the movies we make on there.
Yep.
But movies are only sort of like really, like, we need 2 hours maximum. We need time content.
Yeah.
And there is no cheaper way of producing long content than reality television.
Yeah.
Network television is creatively bankrupt.
Yep.
And the only, like, it's just the cheapest thing to churn out all of this sort of
100%. And I mean, think of how economical it is for us. We're shooting a film now, but we're prepping a later reality series in the same. No one thinks.
You again. We're going to talk about the Heart of Darkness thing, where we, for every film that we're shooting, we're also shooting a making of.
Yeah.
And then it's going to get to the point where we're doing a making of, and that making of is a reality TV show contest.
Oh yes.
So who can make the best making of documentary of the film that's being made?
Yep.
And there's just hours and hours of content to put up on our digital distribution platform.
That's fantastic. Oh, it'll be. Netflix is going down. They've got
Exactly.
nothing. They've got nothing like this. I'd like to see Spielberg try to waltz in here and steal all that.
Don't say that. Don't encourage him.
Oh,
He's done it once before. He will do it again.
Oh man.
All right. Well, I think that's probably all we need to do on the Puppums.
I think that's a wrap.
The Puppums on Odyssey, or the Go on Odyssey. Again, we haven't really come up with
the Odyssey.
I don't know, like, because they do the Muppets do the Muppets Take Manhattan.
Yeah.
Muppets do Treasure Island.
Yep. Well, hang on. Do we need to also combine Oh Brother Where Art Thou?
Oh, Puppums Where Odyssey. Odyssey Puppums Where Out Puppet.
Oh, Puppums Where Art Thou Odyssey.
I don't know. It's a tough one. Oh, Odyssey, where Puppums thou? It doesn't really roll off the tongue. I think we'll have to stick with a format like the Puppums do, or a very Puppums Odyssey.
I love that. A very Puppums Odyssey.
All right,
because it's like the return for them as well, right? They haven't been on TV for a very long time.
Yeah, since those court cases.
Yeah, Kelvin and Magellan. Oh man, we'll sort them out before production starts, but. They haven't been on TV for a while, and I know the public is screaming for them, right? They used to be this cult hit on the channel that they're on.
Yeah, it was public access, and it was only very, like,
low
frequency broadcast.
At 2 a.m. and immediately followed by station close.
Yeah, and you had to be within 5 kilometers of our TV studio.
Half the time they couldn't actually run the full episodes before station close actually happened, so a lot of episodes just get cut off midway. And
that's, like, in terms of our legal standpoint, that was where a lot of the basis of our defense stood from. It's like, you didn't even see the rest of it. You
can't sue for what you didn't see.
Yeah.
All right. I think it's great to have a very Puppums Odyssey.
Yeah.
Because it's like, they're welcome back.
Yeah. And then, the really good thing about doing the Odyssey first is that when we can kill off characters in this and then just bring them back for a very Puppums Iliad.
Yeah.
And then, that really sort of lowers the stakes in the Iliad, right? Because if they showed up in the Odyssey, then they're going to survive.
Yeah.
Maybe we do a thing where we can just kill off people in the Iliad. And just sort of like do this real weird retcon thing where it's just like, these universes may or may not even be intertwined at all. Yes. Who really knows?
Do we kill off John Goodman as well?
Who's going to play all of our characters? Who's going to play the giant wooden horse in a very Puppums Iliad?
No makeup either for John Goodman. It's just him in like and just in a brown jacket, really.
Yeah. All right.
I think that's a wrap.
I think that is a wrap. Any housekeeping to take care of?
Oh, there's always housekeeping, isn't there? Come and check us out on moviefilmstudios.net. That's our website where you'll find information about us and some other bits and pieces, links to where we're all hosted on as well. We're on iTunes. We're on any other podcast app or digital distribution platform.
I will be putting up a movie clue. Actually, I'm going to, because obviously this episode comes out after I put out the movie clues. Congratulations to David Alsop.
Yeah,
and
well done.
AJ Lamarck for correctly guessing the film right this week. You've done a great job, and keep it up.
Well done to you, fine folk. We are obviously on Facebook. That's all happening on Facebook. We are at Movie Film Studio on Twitter. Bane of our existence to try and get that S, but it's fine. I'm not filthy about it. And we are also on YouTube for some reason. In case
like and comment and subscribe on YouTube. This is probably the best. I keep trying to get those star ratings on iTunes to get our average up, but it's still not quite there yet.
Not quite there yet. And I think that's it. I think I'm done for housekeeping.
So once again, thank you for listening to Movie Film Studios. I've been Isaac.
And I've been AJ.
Roll credits.